Hola, buenas tardes.
¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes, José Miguel.
¿Qué tal, Luis Ignacio?
Muy bien. Gracias ahí también, José Miguel, ya nos comentó David, ¿no? Que no podías al principio, pero ahora
Sí, he tenido
nada de caso.
un pequeño incendio. Bueno, pues nada, muchas gracias por darme esta oportunidad para presentar.
Sí, espera un momento que venga, no sé si Aurelio está, ¿no? O empezamos ya, perdona, José Miguel. En cualquier caso, in case, José Miguel, I think we were talking in English because I think it's better to speak in English because I think we're recording the
Okay.
webinar. Also, it's possible to share maybe to different organizations in the framework of the chair. So this is because we were talking in English.
Okay, understood.
It
So,
is possible to understand it. I think it's possible to start, obviously. Thank you.
okay, so should I start now or should we wait a little bit for someone else?
No, because I think we were waiting already, but I think it's better to start now also,
Okay.
according the timing, and also Aurelio is coming, I think. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Luis Ignacio. Thank you to the University of Alicante and la Catedral Metaverso for organizing this event with us. Let me just, I'm here in my capacity as president of LES, Spain and Portugal. LES is the acronym for the Licensing Executives Society, which is a huge organization covering 33 jurisdictions throughout the world. And we are the Iberian chapter, Spain and Portugal, of this big organization. What do we do? Well, this is a non-profit organization composed basically by IP professionals. It includes patent agents, patent attorneys, experts on valuation, researchers, lawyers, litigators, patent litigators, and so all the, let's say, universe of professionals in this world. So what do? We try to encourage and foster commercialization of IP assets. As I said, we have several activities. We organize every year an international conference somewhere in the world. Next year will be, for the first time in April, it will be hosted in Madrid. We will have over 700 professionals from all over the world coming to Madrid just to discuss the hot topics of IP, artificial intelligence, standard essential patents, the metaverse, so the data economy. We're going to have officials from the European Union. We're going to have here as keynote speakers, for instance, Susana Fernandez, the head of IP of Inditex. We're going to have the representatives from some of the most well-known platforms of SEP management and owners of SEPs in the world. So I would just like to encourage you to participate and to be a member of LES. We have a rate of 140 euros a year to become member. This allows our members to have access to the documents of the association, to the magazine Les Nouvelles, which is specialized in IP and which is released in English. It's a quarterly magazine, and it is technically very reputed, and we have some of the most knowledgeable people throughout the world writing articles in our magazine. We meet on a regular basis with our members in different events like this one. We organize networking activities and so on. So, well, that said, thank you very much for, I mean, any information that you might need, or if you would like to consider to become a member, please reach out to me. I will send you through the chat my email address, and you can please, I will be delighted to discuss with you and give you more detailed feedback on the advantages of becoming a member of our association. Okay, so thank you very much, and Luis Ignacio and David, please go ahead with the next roundtable.
Thank you very much, José Miguel, for this introduction to the LES, Spain and Portugal. For me, it's a very big pleasure to give the floor to David. So, David, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, José Miguel, for the introduction. And well, then it's a real pleasure to moderate this second roundtable about regulation as a tool to facilitate interoperability, which, as we will see, has a very high level. Likewise, many colleagues and friends are following this event, so welcome and thank you very much for being part of it. In the previous roundtable, we have discussed on the technical challenges to interoperability, and now we know the interoperability is founded on, among other issues, the ability of data to circulate via interoperable infrastructures, and on the ability of participants to be able to move themselves and their assets and their creations across platforms and experiences. In this context, for the metaverse to be interoperable, some legal issues must be analyzed beforehand. And for this reason, in this second roundtable, we will have the opportunity to discuss on the legal challenges that need to be overcome to achieve a real and an effective interoperability. In this sense, we will speak about, among other issues, the regulation on standardization, intellectual property related matters, privacy, and competition regulations. And for this purpose, we are pleased to have Irene Kitsara, who is the European Standardization Initiatives Director at the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, which is the main professional association in relation to technological innovation and excellence for the benefit of humanity. José Miguel Amat, a lawyer at the Spanish law firm Ceca Macan Abogados, and Begoña Otero, who is the senior research fellow at Max Planck Institute. They will explain the legal and regulatory challenges of interoperability, and will aim to illuminate this topic. As we will see, there are several complex legal issues that can arise when the cyber and the physical worlds come together. And finally, we will have the opportunity to ask them some questions. And so, well then, Irene, thank you for participating in this webinar. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, David, and thanks a lot to LES, the Spanish and the Portuguese chapter of LES, and of course Aurelio for the kind invitation to participate in this very interesting panel today. So let me share my screen. Okay, if you could let me know if you can view. Okay, so I will be starting today's discussion with a topic about, so we saw in the first panel the relationship to interoperability from a technical point of view. I will be talking today about the regulation as a tool to facilitate interoperability, and I will be focusing on IP and standardization issues, given the fact that the two other panelists will be addressing privacy and competition matters. So at the IEEE, we have been working since last year with Council of Europe on a joint project on the metaverse and its impact on human rights, the rule of law, and democracy. This effort by the topic of the metaverse has been recognized by the Council of Europe in their Digital Agenda 2022-2025 as one of the important areas of technology to look at for potential, regulatory and policy-making discussions. And what we also observe is that there are similar efforts. There are a lot of issues report that start emerging from the European Parliament. The Joint Research Center has also published something on the next generation of virtual worlds. So there are different terminologies we heard before around that, and beyond the interoperability, we will need also to talk about harmonization of the terminology. And so we looked at the different human rights, the rule of law, and democracy implications. Now, looking about the governance of the metaverse, and both the regulation and the standards, they form different parts or ways of governing a technology. And we have been seeing different regulatory approaches and similar discussions taking place in the field of AI. And I am old enough to have experienced also similar discussions that were taking place in the field of when the internet emerged. And they were similar to the web. The metaverse is besides having no boundaries, it also is cross-cutting, so it poses a number of issues. So one of the discussions that are currently in place are, do we need a regulation? Is this something that we should think about? There has been a mention before around the need to, the fact that technology tends to develop faster than what regulation can catch up with. And this is known as a pacing problem. So while there is a lot of attention right now focused on the generative AI and how to deal with the black swans that seem to be appearing, there's the question whether the metaverse is an area that should already be looked into. I believe there are a lot of views. I mean, the fact that there are a lot of institutions which are already looking into it and considering how to govern the metaverse, they indicate and show that as we are already experiencing some versions of the early versions of the metaverse, of what was the vision of a metaverse, that there is a need of related consideration. Another area that is looked into in relation to regulation is whether we need whether our current legal frameworks are sufficient or whether we need new ones, if we need new instruments, and whether we need something which is technology specific. So in the framework of the Council of Europe, for example, there is currently, the CAI is working on a framework convention on AI. So there comes the question, would we need related treaty governing the metaverse? So something technology specific or something similar to the AI Act, or would we need some regulation which would be more principle or outcome based? So we have, for example, at the European Union level, we have some frameworks which are not metaverse specific, like the DSA and the DMA. And the question is, would such framework, which are meant for digital platforms, for example, and digital markets, would there be sufficient to cover the different issues we are dealing with and we're trying to solve in relation to the metaverse? Other ways of regulating of governing the metaverse is self-regulation. So if there are some efforts among the developers of the technology, operators in the private sector, whether it is whether they can just develop a series of protocols and some principles and frameworks, and whether this would be sufficient. I believe that the recent experience we had with the generative AI shows that this is probably not sufficient, even if this can be part of the solution. And another soft law approach to governance are the standards. So we heard about them, and thanks to the panelists of the first panel about the very nice introduction and discussion around the topic. So I will try not to repeat what has been already said. So these are voluntary technical specifications which are adopted by means of consensus by industry. We saw the nice comic showing, the fact that we have a lot of standards very often, And typically what happens is that depending on the industries that will adopt, who will adopt it, then the people who will be part of the value chain, they will also be following the same type of standards. Co-regulation is another approach where we have a combination of the regulation and self-regulation with a partnership, a cooperation between the governments and the private sector. So we heard before from Aurelio at the start of this webinar the different features of the metaverse and how when we look at the original vision of the metaverse, how it is, despite the lack of consensus about what exactly the metaverse is, that there has to be an interconnectedness and interoperability among the different virtual spaces, which we may view as components of the metaverse or metaverses. So in order to achieve that, interoperability comes as a need, and to some extent we see this being partially, a regulatory requirement. So there is, for example, in Europe, the DMA, which does set it out as one, and we have seen similar requirements set forth, for example, in the AI Act. So what is now the relation of regulation, so the hard law, with the soft law, the standards? So the role of standards very often is complementary to the regulation. So they offer, when we talk, for example, about the harmonized standards of the European Union, we heard before about the European standardization bodies. They give the so-called presumption of conformity. So that is an assurance also for the end users and the consumers that regarding safety, regarding the requirements set forth in a standard. There are also soft standards, like we heard before, the case of the Ethereum, where we had a protocol which did not form part of a technical standard, and it was rather, developed independently, and still it got adopted. And this is one of the key standards, for creating tokens in Ethereum for cryptocurrencies. The recognition of the role of the importance of standards for interoperability in the metaverse has been raised at several instances. We see different statements that were done, for example, at the European Union leadership, and the standards are constantly being mentioned as playing an important role in making sure that regulation is being as a technical implementation of the regulation. We've often faced the issue of the chicken and the egg. So sometimes when there is a need, there is a regulation and there is a need for standardization. We will see at the European Union level that we will have a standardization request being sent out to the European standardization development organizations. But in some cases, if there are already standards in place, they can even inform and help the regulators when they develop a regulation about what is considered a best practice, what are some technical specifications and needs. It is often left into third bodies to certify, to develop and to certify the standards. So in terms of the interoperability standards, we heard before about the different layers of the metaverse, and it is important to understand that when we talk about interoperability, we need also to talk about interoperability among the building blocks of the metaverse, about the foundational technologies, such as, for example, we heard before about the spatial web. There are also different aspects such as data and identity. So we have the virtual representation of a person, which is typically done through an avatar or digital humans as an advanced version of an avatar. And there are different digital or virtual assets which may be purchased or created in the metaverse, and they may need to be transferred from one space to the other. There is the question that comes up here, what is the different uses and acceptable uses of the different assets, and whether we have also some issues of additional infringements beyond IP, also to other areas of law. Now, we refer to this portability or transferability of, for example, an avatar, or it could be even features and different layers of an avatar from one environment to the other. For that, there are different technologies and standards which can help, which can link either these virtual aspects of an avatar to a human ID, to a person. And they can help making this mapping between the different features. So it is not even just the avatar as a whole, but it could be even different layers thereof. So in this way, having interoperability standards allow for a seamless transition from one space to the next, and transfer and portability of either an identity, an avatar, or different virtual goods. And of course, recognition and application in a way that does not disrupt the user experience. Something else that I would like to raise is also the role, besides the pure technical standards, of the socio-technical and ethical standards. So as an example, in the case of AI, IEEE has developed a series of standards around the ethical requirements, which refer, for example, to AI. And in the case, translating this now to the interoperability standards, in the metaverse, and since we're talking about the chair of the responsible metaverse, if we want to make sure that in our considerations of interoperability, we have also embedded some values, such as, for example, transparency. So we would like, or accountability, in order to see whether there has been a governance around that. So if the requirements for fulfilling for adhering to these principles are met, there can be some ethical frameworks and socio-technical standards which can also support in the assumption that these requirements have been met. Now, we heard before talking about the open standards for interoperability, and more specifically, we also heard about one initiative, the Metaverse Standards Forum, which is the biggest initiative in this space, even if not the only one. So I just wanted to add to what was mentioned before, that some of the topics that are being discussed within that space are very closely linked to the topic we're discussing today, such as 3D web interoperability, digital asset management, interoperable characters, avatars. There is also a Metaverse Standards Register. So this is also, I think, very useful for the confusion that is often exists among users about what are the different available standards. And lastly, digital fashion wearables for avatars, which I believe has also been the case of several case law. Now, I would like to move to the IPRs. When we're looking at IP rights, so patents, copyrights, trademarks, designs, which may have been existing in the physical world and be moved or represented in the virtual realm, or could have been created by users in the metaverse. So there is an issue of portability, transferability, and treatment of these rights moving from one world to the next one. So I may have, and these issues are linked to having different platform owners, different operators, and dealing with different jurisdictions. So for example, if I'm in one virtual world, the server or the platform owner may be based in one jurisdiction, and then I want to move into another one. Another issue that is raised is around the breadth of these IP rights. So we heard before about, the limitations of creators and developers in the metaverse. So there is quite a series of exceptions that may be used, such as fair use or de minimis use. So somebody may start. If there are some small elements of an IP right, they may be used as a starting point. There are different issues that may arise. For example, if I buy something which is covered by a trademark, are the rights of the owner exhausted after I bought it? That means, could I then modify it? And what would this mean? The answer would be different across different jurisdictions. So there comes already a problem. If this is not problematic in one jurisdiction and I'm moving my modified asset in another one, what is the implication? So there are also issues related to NFTs and blockchain. So the minute I may store something in the copyright world, this would be considered a reproduction. So there are several issues about who has a license to use a right and permission. So this is something that probably needs to be seen on a case-by-case basis. And the most cases that have reached the court so far, they relate to NFTs which have been infringing trademarks. So the applicability and enforceability of IP rights are related to virtual territoriality and different jurisdictions. And all that sounds very familiar if we consider the internet and streaming realities or AI. So the difference now is that we are dealing with virtual worlds, several of them, and with different layers and increased complexity. So we expect to see a tension between the IPR holders on one side who want to see their rights being protected, and on the other side having the creators looking for exceptions to these rights for interoperability purposes. So there needs to be another aspect I wanted to raise is that since we will be shifting from centralized platform as we know them to decentralized Web3, which is the basis of the metaverse, there is the issue whether we heard before about DAOs and smart contracts, which could be managing, they could be used, this could be some automated tools that could help in managing IPRs and royalties across platforms and making this a more seamless experience with less costs. At the same time, this decentralized nature may cause also more complexity in enforcement, since there will be even more environments involved and probably more jurisdictions. While the tokenization of IP rights could even open new business models for IPR management if we break down the assets into individual bits and pieces that can hopefully be moved from one environment to the other one. So in a nutshell, we need interoperability if we need to have interconnected worlds. We will be dealing with similar concepts as before. We need more coordinated efforts among the different stakeholders, and also there needs to be an awareness among all the stakeholders about the technical implications of the metaverse and technologies involved and challenges. And it will be a balancing act between regulation on one side, standardization and innovation, trying to find the right balance. Some last thoughts is that we will probably be, what we learned from AI is we need to avoid regulatory fragmentation. We need to look for trustworthy and automated system and tools to facilitate the authentication, portability, and IPR management. And no matter what we do, we will need also the complementarity of guidelines, codes of conduct, and certification to increase the rule of law. And we believe the standards can also play an important role in this implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your interesting thoughts, Irene. It is clear that standardization is one of the key aspects to which special attention will have to be paid when referring to interoperability. I think that we are on schedule, so it is time to move on to our next speaker, José Luis Amat. As already mentioned, he's a lawyer at Tecamagan Abogados, a Spanish law firm. And if I'm right, he will focus on mainly privacy regulations and issues as a tool to facilitate interoperability. So, José Luis, the floor is yours. José Luis, you are on mute.
Yep. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Luis Ignacio, for his kind invitation and also for the Metaverse UA chair. For sure, we are going to talk about these implications, legal implications, as Irene mentioned. For sure, in this dynamic landscape of the digital realm, we stand on the edge of an extraordinary era. The interconnected virtual universe promises boundless possibilities. So far we have talked about the technological interoperability, but in my opinion, there's three key concepts about the interoperability in the metaverse and all these platforms: technological interoperability, legal interoperability, and human interoperability. So from the technological interoperability, as Carlos, Rafael, and Antonio mentioned, the metaverse rests on its ability to unite disparate platforms, enabling the smooth exchange of information, assets, and experience across a multitude of virtual environments. Think of it as a bridge connecting diverse digital spaces, empowering users to journey effortlessly through this expansive digital tapestry. And here we have the second interoperability, the legal interoperability. And in discussing Irene's insights on legal concerns and regulatory issues in this context, a crucial considerations arises: the necessity for legal framework to mirror the interoperable nature of technology. It entails ensuring that laws are compatible and consistent across jurisdictions, akin to the seamless connectivity and exchange facilitated by interoperable technologies. In a sense, legal systems should adapt to interoperable nature of technology, allowing for harmonious and cohesive legal environment that complements the dynamic digital landscape, fostering innovation and collaboration across borders, or as our colleagues mentioned. And here's where we see hope in the horizon: a ray of promise shining through in the forthcoming regulation within the European Union. As Irene mentioned, acts such as the Data Act, DSA, DMA, MICA, DORA, Transfer Fund, and ongoing discussions on Digital Euro, ADAS2, and AR regulations are poised to shape the future of metaverse. So these regulations, as we understand, are the conceive and the secure metaverse. And here we have the third and the last, most important, in my opinion, interoperability, the human interoperability. Between technological and legal intricacies, what remains in paramount is the human factor, or innate adaptability and ability to interact. In the technological realm, the human holds an identity that interact with rights and obligations. So the identity play a crucial role. The people interacts with others, doing transactions. Will these transactions will be considered as money or as a simple transaction? So how the human can interact within the metaverse, within these different platforms with tokens. A report made by the European Union named Should Europe Develop into Token Economy? Tokenize Europe 2025 talk about it and the implications on the metaverse. Tokens, specifically utility and security tokens, play a pivotal role in shaping the metaverse landscape. In this interconnected digital universe, these tokens serve as the building blocks facilitating seamless transactions and interactions across platforms. Utility tokens designed to provide access to a particular service or network fuels the metaverse functionalities, enabling users to engage and navigate various digital realms. On the other hand, security tokens represent real-world assets and operate under regulatory frameworks, ensuring compliance and investor protection within this expansive digital space. Both tokens types intertwine with this metaverse, enhancing these functionalities while adhering to regulatory measures, thereby underlying their crucial role in fostering a secure and versatile digital environment. So effective regulation is not just a necessity, it's our compass guiding us toward an inclusive, secure metaverse. It's the collaborative effort of policymakers, industry, stakeholder, and regulatory bodies that will shape this digital frontier into a realm that not only foster innovation, but also prioritize users' protections and safety. Let us strive for a metaverse that respects individual rights, ensures securities, and offers boundless opportunities for all.
Thank you, José Luis. Very useful and interesting. We still have Begoña, a senior research fellow at Max Planck Institute, left to talk. So, and we are already amazed by the number of issues and challenges posed by interoperability in the metaverse. Begoña, good evening. Thank you for participating. Thank you for participating in this event. So please proceed. The floor is yours.
Okay, fast goes fast. Can you hear me and can you see the screen? Yeah,
we can.
So you see the, okay, so you all can see the presentation. So I prepared this presentation. Initially, I didn't want to, but then you told me to speak for around 15 minutes, and that's a lot of time. And I'm the last, probably not the least. So I hope the audience is not very tired already. And well, my intention during these next 15 minutes, I'm going to just maybe try to recap a bit on what have been said, looking at, because one of the things that competition law has is that, and competition policy, is that this economic approach, it's also part of it. Innovation is, of course, part of it. Consumer welfare is also part of it. So we put a lot of hopes, let's put it like that, under traditional competition theory. And that might allow us also to go to the technological, some of the tech comments that we have heard. So if this works, yeah. I mean, we heard already that we have different approaches to what the metaverse is, if it's a Web3 plus enhance, if it could be an extension of, let's put it like that, digital market. So we already are in the middle of a disruptive transition. We have a lot of disruptive technologies around us, and we are talking about digital economies all the time, no? So the digital economies, the data economy, I mean, we know about that. It's nothing new, I will say. But I think that sometimes when we talk about that, we have the tendency to focus only in Europe and to be maybe a lot of Eurocentric and forget that probably, and that's just my opinion, when we are facing this digital disruption, and we normally have been made this geopolitical distinction on North and South, so more developed countries and emerging economies, but when we're looking at the digital economy and the data economy, I think it could be fair even to say that we are all emerging economies. We are all facing very similar challenges. And we have all different cultural backgrounds and the pace, that Irene was referring before to, this problem with, but the technology keeps coming, keeps developing, and the law is always behind, this pacing problem. It even accentuates more when you have a legal system that it's still not so well developed, let's put it like that, or that has less experience. We normally look at Europe because it's, especially even from a competition point of view, because we have had a lot of case law, the activity of the European Commission, but also of national competition authorities has extensive jurisprudence, and that helps us and helps others, let's put it that way. But that also comes with this idea of the Brussels effect, and that we want to export our values, and well, not all the countries might want that. Having said that, interoperability, it always comes, and I must say, I think I'm old enough also to say that interoperability has been at the heart of everything that relates to technology since I have memory of I start diving into this field, So when it comes again back to the metaverse, yes, it's in all the agendas. It's same as AI, same as quantum computing, same as Web3. If you remember, this is a statement from Margaret Stava, the commissioner, from March this year, where she was saying that, well, we need to start asking, if what healthy competition should look like in the metaverse, and what are the chances that we need to create new or just to hone our own toolkits to these through mutual learning. And then I said, okay, metaverse, competition law. Well, is there literature already about that? What kind of literature, what do they say? And I ran a brief literature review. I found a lot, actually. There has been quite a lot of publications on the potentials and on the needs. But I have also to say that normally every time we have a disruptive technology, this comes. It's part of course, of a scholarship, But this comes. And it comes normally, again, with the message that we need to change everything. We need to adapt to this technology. And that comes with certain risk, And that comes also at the stake, let's put it like that, of regulatory capture. And that can be really dangerous for the well-functioning of the markets, or the free markets as we know it. As you can see on the slide, I found something very interesting, which is you can go there, the Metaverse Competition Agency. It's an endeavor that was funded by a group of actually competition scholars. And I went through the white paper that they published, and I found this, a bit of this quite interesting. So when it comes at what the vision that they have from a competition perspective, they said that the metaverse will emerge or will force, or will kind of foster the emergence of more private property enforced by code, norms, and laws. So that can bring us an idea to smart contracts, or code as law. It has been already mentioned. Whether that will be a full emergence or not, I'm still not that sure. But it's their proposal, is their thinking. The governing of immutability, content security, but also from a tech perspective, very interesting, the presence of more viruses or disruptive elements. We have already here and seen that in the field of AI. This poisoning code that has been used by some copyright owners and holders and authors, to try to avoid that large language models take their material and use it, and then so what effect that will have. So we're already seeing that. It's not something that might happen more in Web3. Don't know, but is their bet. And then also this idea of that we will need to rethink intellectually economic competition theory. Well, I mean, I'm a bit resistant in that, and then we can discuss, because I think that so far, just looking at that from a very holistic perspective and international perspective, so jurisdictional wise, it's already going to be a challenge. So if we come with something and we're thinking completely new, that might be even more problematic to try to bring it up to an enforcement level, which at the end, it's what make a system work, no? The level of enforcement, the effectiveness. Then also looking at what's been said out there, I have found so interesting proposals like that antitrust should be adapted to identify competitive issues in the metaverse world. So like we have a different world separate for the one that we have, that opens a canon of worms, let's say, from also again from an enforcement perspective and from an application perspective. And we will need a different also idea. We will be a different person. So I couldn't dig more into that, but that it's already been said. No, let's put it like that. Of course, the regulation of standards and interoperability to foster open metaverse. It has been mentioned before. No, this fight open close, but I wonder to what extent this open close debate, it has reached a moment that I think we need to make it evolve and not just be cornered into, because we still don't have a clear definition or an agreed definition of what open innovation is, or what an open standard is or is not. We have different types of openness, let's put it like that, different shades. What will be the incentives for that? It's also something that it's important. And what will be the risk for competitive markets? Those are questions that come to the back of my head. And then last but not least, the proposal that we should turn a bit antitrust to promote more consumer autonomy, to prohibit the use of dark partners, implement data silos to block cross-market data flows. But the question is, do we need to put all that on antitrust? It's that the task of antitrust law. Don't we have already other? So just looking at the European acquis existence, or the acquis that we have, and it has been mentioned already, we have new regulations, Digital Singles, the Digital Service Act, the Digital Markets Act, even in the GDPR, we have a specific provision. So shouldn't it be better to have a more holistic approach and transdisciplinary, let's put it like that, instead of just putting all the pressure under one specific type of market regulation, which is competition law? So having said that, I want to talk a bit more about portability, quick and briefly. So because we have said that normally, and it has been said from technicians and the business experts, interoperability is generally understood as this ability to transfer, so the systems to communicate. So you communicate because you're speaking a language that we can both understand, and then we can transfer. That was mentioned before also. But normally for this to happen, like now that I'm talking to you, this requires continuous real-time transfers of data. And I think this is something that hasn't been stressed enough today. This need for continuous real-time transfers of data. And this, it's important because when we look at portability of data, the portability of data, it's normally understood, as you can see below, it's this ability or this right that we have to request according to the definition that we have in Europe under the GDPR, but has been kind of, I will say, extended everywhere, that a data holder transfers to the person or to a specific third-party data concerning that person, so under the framework of data protection rights, in a structured, commonly used and machine-readable form and an ad hoc or continuous basis. So we're talking not only about continuous real-time transfers of data here. Then just keep these ideas in the back of your head and try to contextualize that in this idea of metaverse that has been explained today, or has been mentioned during the past 2 hours. So for me, some questions that may arise is like, okay, so we're talking about interoperability of potential metaverses, because what we have seen and has been explained to us is that we still are very far from having a full, let's say, parallel cyber world or Web3, the semantic web. So will a user that is in Metaverse A will be able to bring just her or his data assets, from one metaverse to the other? We heard already that's not so easy. But also, would interoperability and network effects in the metaverse behave very different from what we already have experienced and know in relation to creating barriers to entry or putting them down in digital platforms? I mean, I think those are questions that we need to ask ourselves. And also, if interoperability in the metaverse, would it raise different concerns from an antitrust perspective, from a competition perspective? When we think about taking the European example, Article 101, competitors may be collaborating on standards, exchanging information to implement those standards across platforms. This is already the case. This is already happening. We have seen that. It has been mentioned before. So it's very different. When we look at an abuse of unilateral conduct, limitations and restrictions, will that be also very, very different? And on that, I will bring you an example of a recent example. So human approach, also this centric human approach. And in this case, as the OECD has in several studies mapped and worked fantastically, we can look at different levels. We have level 0, where we have closed data proprietary, level 1, access by stakeholders, so it's discriminatory, where you discriminate who and how, and hence by community members, or access by the public, open data. And I think this is important when we look at, even when we try to bring these dimensions, or the dimensions of mapping data portability to the competition role. So when we look at data portability, we have five dimensions. And this has been repeatedly said by different scholars and specialists like Zweistel, Meska, and others. So we have the sectoral scope, we have the beneficiaries, so whether we're talking about just individuals or organizations. We have the type of data that we're talking about that is subject to this portability, but we also have legal obligations and how they are enforced. So to the extent it's voluntary, it's mandatory, and also the modus operandi. So are we talking about ad hoc downloads? Are we talking about direct transfers of data to third parties? Or are we talking about real-time continuous data transfers? That the only example that I know that it's embedded in a legal mandate, let's say, it's right now in the DMA in Article 7 or 8. I think it's 7 if I'm not mistaken now. So the messaging applications. So here you can see a mapping also that was prepared by the OECD, where you can see many of these different different laws, not necessarily competition laws, as you can see, from different countries. And in some cases are governmental initiatives, in other cases are private sector initiatives that try to look into that, because those are ways to foster more innovation and to foster more competitive markets. However, and I'm getting to closing with that, I think it's important that when we look at how much interoperability, how much data portability, how much open, how much close, we need to take into account that interoperability in the context of competition in the markets and for the markets brings both opportunities but also risk. So how to balance that is the $1 million question. Because on the one hand, yes, more open, it can reduce information asymmetries. It can limit switching costs. We have seen that now. It's what it comes in the new data, in the data that has been approved for cloud service providers. It can even reduce barriers to market entry, which is really good for startups. But on the other hand, that can have also unintended adverse effects on market structures. So we need to be careful. And the competition authorities, when normally they enforce ad hoc, and I think the DMA is an example of something that it's not competition law, that it's much more focused now on this idea of fairness, that it's coming and coming more, shows that, well, it's not the same when you look at that ex post or ex ante, no? Same as I mentioned, stimulating innovation, sure, but you can also again have incentives on the side of reducing incentives to invest. And then that can even bring more lock-in effects than intended, no? than wanted. It's true that it can facilitate data flows and data sharing, especially it might give higher availability of customer information to third parties, but hey, we have also digital security risks there, and IT vulnerability, cyber security, privacy, exposure. That also comes from this idea of achieving an informational self-determination. Yes, when we put the consumers in control, that's good. That's what we all want. But we also need to be careful that we make easier and that it's not misused by the over collection of data, and consumers are not pressured to provide their data. So trying to find a balance here, it's complicated. And with that, and I'm about to close, I want to bring to your attention a case that maybe some of you already have heard about it. It comes from the Italian Competition Market Authority, and it's a case that was decided, the final, so it started in 2021 or 2020 already. It's based on a violation of Article 102, so unilateral abuse, where NLX had developed an app for electrical vehicles charging. It's called Juicy Pass, and they require certain interoperability information protocols to make it compatible with Android Auto. And they claim that, because there was certain problem, let's put it like that, between Google Maps and Juicy Pass, that's the name of the app, Google decided not to provide those protocols. So they file a complaint before the competition authority, and that has reached to this point, to the point that the Council of State of Italy has decided to refer a number of questions related to the interpretation of Article 102 when we're looking at digital platforms. And I think this is a very interesting example because it could be eventually extrapolated to these potential future realities that we're talking about, like the metaverse. And out of the 4 questions, here you, I mean, if you check it online, you can find it. But I think the 4th question is very interesting because here we are talking about, so under a violation of 102, when we're talking about a dominant company that holds control of a digital platform, and I think here we also have from the technical side people know that. So can a competition authority require this platform, this dominant undertaking, to modify its own products or even to develop new ones, to allow access to those products to those who requested it? Let's call it, in this case, NLX. Let's call it, for instance, a startup. So if a dominant company is required to take into consideration the general needs of the market or the needs of a single company requesting access, or even to give a special responsibility that it assumes on the market, is this something that must set objective criteria for examining the request as addressed to it, or for grading their order of priority? So is it something that could fall under the scope of 102? I mean, that's a question for the Court of Justice. We'll see how that ends. But I think this is a case that we all should follow. So having said that, and just wrapping up, I think we still have a lot of uncertainties when it comes to what should be the scope of data portability and to what extent. There are Of course, digital security and privacy risks, José Luis has referred to them already, responsibility and liability challenges. Indeed, also Irene mentioned a couple, cost of compliance. In the first panel, there were some mentions to that. Also, interoperable specifications, no? These standards, the APIs, how we work with that, even how we mandate that, even how a competition authority can deal with that. But especially and overall, because we're looking at the global level, not just a jurisdictional level, and Irene has already mentioned that very nicely, we have a challenge ahead, a huge challenge ahead that passes by these cross-agency regulatory and enforcement cooperation, how to organize that and make it work. And having said that, I hope I didn't took too much of the 15 minutes. Thank you. And now it's time for discussion. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Begoña. I think that we have enough information to realize that interoperability is not a simple issue from a legal point of view. Thank you again, Begoña. I think that we have a question from the people listening to us, but firstly, I would like to ask you a general question because the European Commission has developed a vision for Metaverse based on respect for digital rights and the European Union laws and values. In this sense, in July this year, the European Commission published a communication which expressly states the following. The European Union already has a robust, future-oriented legislative framework that already applies to several aspects of the development of virtual worlds as Metaverse. Do you agree with this statement? And if not, which issues will be helpful to consider when composing a future real and effective legislative framework applicable to this kind of technologies? For example, Irene or Begoña?
Irene, do you want to go first?
I think that you are mute, Irene.
Sorry, I was just asking if you could repeat the statement.
Yeah. The European Union already has a robust, future-oriented legislative framework that already applies to several aspects of the development of virtual worlds as metaverses.
Okay, thank you. So in relation to that, I think that goes back to the question, do we need, technology-specific or principle-based regulation? And I think this is where in the direction of that this strategy goes towards in a non-legally binding series of frameworks. And I think we have been also discussing with several experts on this issue. Do we need to regulate? How much is too much regulation? How much is too little regulation? So the whole balancing act of, how far should we go? And a lot of the experts we have been talking to already stressed the fact that we have already a lot of, the regulatory framework is already too much to handle for I will not talk about the startups already, to deal with all this, but even with the bigger players, I mean, they have challenges, catching up with everything that is ongoing. So a lot of the issues are also around the enforceability of the existing frameworks. And to that relation, I think it is important also to see, I had it in one of my points, but because of the time I didn't mention, was the role of the different stakeholders, meaning who can actually help us in this new environment, which is very heavily proprietary, like accessing the information. Who will let us know, was there an infringement to start with in the whole framework? So that is, I think, something that is worth looking at, and this is why the dialogue is going to be very important to create also clarity for the whole market and the different players. Thank you.
So yes.
If I may continue on that, I mean, I agree with what Irene just said. I think, but I think that the statement from the European perspective falls short. I mean, I think we need to look beyond. And I think so also maybe, I mean, it's the virtual world. The question is, when we refer to the virtual world, are we referring to something different from the digital world? I mean, what kind of world are we talking about? Because here, I mean, to a certain extent, definitions matter. But if we're always going to be, I mean, if we're always going to be depending on the technology, we'll always be, of course, be left behind. I mean, I just read one of the questions there saying that if the DMA and the data Act apply to virtual world platforms, well, aren't they digital platforms? In the end, at the end of the day. So it's a matter of interpretation. If I look at the definition of what data is nowadays under the Data Act, of course, I mean, it's enormous. I mean, it's not what we were saying about data maybe 10 years ago. We're talking about images. We're talking about music. So we're talking, there is where copyright suddenly, oh, careful. No, it's not just numbers. It's not just ones and zeros. It's not just something that is unstructured. No, 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 no. So I think it's important that if we want to horn, let's say, a legal system that can be enforced, we need to, even from a scholar perspective, but for the policymaking perspective, much more coordination is needed, especially at the enforcing level, but at an international level. I mean, data transfers, they crosses, I mean, all boundaries. So this is really, really important. Yes, we have a huge, massive legal toolkit at the European Union level. That's already a problem. And I wouldn't say we have over-regulation. I think what we have, it's a coordination problem. But we need to be aware that we need to look at the world differently, not just to what happens in the EU, because what happens in India is also important. What happens at the African Union level, it's important. What happens in Brazil is important. No? If we're looking at this connected world, if we're looking at a virtual or digital world.
I think that, Begoña, this is probably the reason why the European Union is calling this kind of framework like legal package. It's not like a single act, it's like a package. I mean, this is a huge amount of acts that is stating different themes, but they are acting together. In my opinion, they are for sure really robust, but we are the standard. I mean, in privacy, we are the standards, and the American companies that want to come to the European Union and have this market, this 100 million market, is trying to adapt to for example, GDPR. That it seems to be that from the past century, but this is not. In artificial intelligence regulation, we are losing this opportunity, and it will also affect to Metaverse, but the United States is moving forward, and they also have more or less like a regulation. It's like a statement. So in my opinion, I'm feeling comfortable with this robust framework, legal framework. I think that, as Irene Begoña mentioned, we should move forward to adapt quickly and easily to every company. I mean, to the DSM or the DMA companies or SMS companies, to every company.
Okay, you have mentioned artificial intelligence, and I would like to ask you if these artificial intelligence regulations currently can have an influence on Metaverse. What do you think nowadays?
For sure. I mean, every net, it means Metaverse, tokens, blockchain, every net will be affected by the artificial intelligence, in my opinion, for sure.
I think that beyond, I fully agree with Jose Luis. And I think that besides, accelerating maybe the deployment and development of the metaverse, the AI is also giving us a good example. All the discussions that have been taking place and are currently taking place are, I think, great lessons learned in the way we govern the metaverse as well. So I think that some of the issues that we will be facing. I mean, the issues are similar, like the concepts we are using for AI or the metaverse are similar. We talk about data protection, we talk about privacy, we talk about competition, but there may be just an exacerbation of existing issues. Maybe we could simulate or compare the generative AI discussions with the metaverse, because both are kind of in development, and the full effect and impact is still unknown. So we're trying to guesstimate and imagine either the worst case scenarios, or think in terms of risks, thinks in terms of so try to have an approach to be as preemptive or forecast what may happen, and try to predict in a way.
Okay, I think that we can now close this roundtable, but finally, I would like I would thank you if you could please end each of you with a brief conclusion about regulation as a tool to facilitate interoperability, and also if you can speak about the legal barriers that prevent the rise of interoperability in the metaverse. So, José Luis, for example.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, the legal barriers that can affect to interoperability can be the human barriers. I mean, if the people that are doing these kind of acts are living in different circumstances and in different jurisdictions, they will be affected. The companies will be affected through different jurisdictions. It will be the main legal barrier, in my opinion, to interoperability, because in the States can work some technologies, or in the European Union can works different technologies that are not allowed, for example, in this kind of artificial intelligence operation, or quantum, or every technology. For me, the jurisdiction will be the main barrier to interoperability.
Okay, thank you, José Luis. Very interesting. Begoña, please.
Well, I mean, I think it really depends. It's not a yes, no answer. I mean, and maybe we will have to reformulate the question. I mean, it's regulation can help in achieving interoperability, indeed. But the question is, what type of interoperability do we want to foster, and why? And what type of portability do we want to foster, and why? And that's not a question that can be answered with a general full interoperability for all, or full portability for all, or just nothing for anyone. So it's not black and white. And for that, one needs to take into account the economic context, the market context, but also the social context. So and political, cultural. So and of course, we have certain legal principles also from a European perspective that we also always want to assure that they are covered, no? Like the rule of law, legal freedom of expression, but also the freedom of companies to run their business. So we have the charter, no? Even environmental protection, and so on and so forth. So we also have different international agreements. But for me, the question will be, would it be possible to, through different, because there are different types of regulation, but would it be possible that through certain regulatory coordination at international level, could we achieve certain general principles that help in promoting interoperability and data sharing, data portability, in a way that also help us keeping economic growth, being sustainable? So in the end, maybe achieving sustainable development goals. Is that possible? That's, for me, the question.
Okay, thank you, Begoña. Irene, please.
Yes, so I was thinking that actually the legal barriers is practically the legal uncertainty. So if you don't have the legal certainty about or what are the conditions you are navigating in a new space, are you going to really engage into it? There is a lot of risk involved. And given the fact that each jurisdiction, will develop naturally their own reaction to what tends to be, usually considered a hype. And I think Metaverse is similar to AI, one of these areas that, the policymakers often feel prompted to react and respond. So I fully agree on the principle version. So the clarity that needs to be around roles and responsibilities of the different stakeholders on ways to have safeguards. For me personally, the way, do we really have a regulation in place? Do we have self-regulation? Do we have, that for me is a technicality. We just need to reach the same goal and avoid the race to the bottom. That for me is the greatest danger. We see this in AI where jurisdictions choose not to regulate to attract, well, the official version is to innovate, but attract and keep some industry. So I think that I would consider personally as the greatest risk. So for that, I think it is really important to see the possible implications of a non-regulated space, regulated in a broader set, or non-governed space, if you may, and really agree on equivalence of regulation based on principles or similar concepts.
Well, thank you for your interesting thoughts and for your time, Irene, Begoña, and José Luis. I think that we can now close this second roundtable. And please, Aurelio, the floor is yours, no?
No, David, you close. I was just
okay. Well,
to congratulate you and the speakers and the people that remains in the webinar. I have enjoyed it a lot, but please, you close on behalf of LES. I'm sorry that I was not here when Jose Miguel made the introduction of this second roundtable, but please, you close. Thank you guys for your interventions, to all of you.
Thank you, Aurelio. Thank you again to all the speakers of the two roundtables. It has been a very interesting session. Thank you again, Luis Ignacio, for the coordination of this event. And Jose Miguel, thank you again for your introduction. And well, I think that we have a lot of interesting issues when speaking about Metaverse and specifically about interoperability, and from the technical and also from the legal point of view. So we need to keep an eye on this context and, well, step by step. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas to all of you on behalf of the chair of the Metaverse. This is the last seminar, the last webinar of the year. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.